Hi there, Ronnie here, and it's night coming at you with another video, and this is about my best experiences as a player. I rarely get to play, and I don't say that with any sort of disgruntlement. I actually enjoy GMing far more. But I have had some very, very nice experiences as a player. I've had some pretty rotten experiences as a player, but I'll do another video on that one. So as a player, I would have to say top of the pile for me was a campaign that became known as the Plains campaign. This was run by my friend Scott, and he used the Palladium role-playing game system, but he literally just used the system for the rules and resolution and so on. The actual campaign world was completely unique and was all his own. And it was essentially a sort of fantasy take of a sort of Middle Eastern steppes, Mongol steppes sort of world, where rather than large cities, it was really a sort of desert terrain, a plains terrain of disparate tribes who had once all been under the banner of a great Khan. This Khan had been killed and dethroned by a Dark Lord who controlled dragons, and his heir, this young man, was heir to the throne, and he was attempting to unite the tribes under his banner to take out the Dark Lord and regain his throne. Now this was a huge campaign that I was involved in with 3 different characters. 2 of them having died. Well, one of them died, one of them got taken out of the program really, and then the third one, the campaign was kind of winding down because people couldn't get into it as much. But I really enjoyed playing it. It was so dramatic, there was action, there was huge battles involved. I loved doing the battles. I loved the battles. The characters. I was the first character I had was called Altan. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. That was the second character. The first one was Gayuk, who was a small plainsman from a smaller tribe who stood on the battlefield and, wounded though he was, put his spear into the ground. I tied my leg, standing leg, so I was wounded and couldn't stand. I tied myself onto my spear so I couldn't fall, and I stood and I faced the enemy. And the tribe leader had died in the battle, and due to my bravery I was named a new tribe leader. And I literally rode into battle with someone who I didn't really get on with, this other character we didn't get on with, but we put our differences aside to take on, this common enemy, and we both ended up drowned because of a particular player who decided that flooding a river, even though our entire army was running up the riverbed, was a great idea. No, it wasn't. It was bloody terrible. But I then got the character of Altan, and Altan was a sorcerer who was a dragon. And dragons were hated and feared by the Plainspeople because the dragons were all in service of the Dark Lord. In my particular case, I had broken ranks for the Dark Lord because he had turned my soulmate into stone, and I had her fashioned into the pommel for my sword. And if I managed to pierce the sword into the heart of the Dark Lord, she would be freed. This was a background that we came up with afterwards, when I was given the character to give him some motivation. But most of the time he presented himself as human and as a great sorcerer. and he was a great character. And the reason I enjoyed playing him after having played Gaiuk, where Gaiuk had been very deferential to the Khan and was very sort of, Khan. Altan was having none of it. Altan never offered uh, allegiance in the sense of uh, being a subject to the Khan. He offered him an alliance, that they faced a common enemy and therefore had a common goal, and the enemy of my enemy. Rather than him sort of bowing and saying Khan, he would do so in front of the Khan's people because he understood quite importantly how it was to keep face for the Khan in order to keep the army together. But he didn't take much stick with the Khan at all. He just poo-pooed him quite heavily. I loved having played Gaiuk and playing him very well as a servant, and then having to give a speech as Gaiuk as well, give a speech to rally my tribe, which I had to do, and we actually role played it properly, which is I had to give a speech completely off the cuff, and the GM would then assign a value to it, depending on how well he thought the campaign, how well he thought my speech was, and he would give me either a bonus or a penalty to a roll to see whether I affected the morale of the troops. So I went through this whole big speech rallying them, and he rolled and said, "Oh yeah, they're right with you," and that was a really good moment as a player, because as I say, I don't get to play that much. And when I did that and I got that down, I was like, yes! It was just a moment for me. And I damn near had another moment as Altan. There was a huge siege on a castle that we were in, and the enemy sieged us. And I actually sent a sleep spell out to try and take the enemy down, and I missed the roll by one. And the GM would say, "Look, if you'd rolled one more, you would have taken them all out." And I went, "Damn!" So I almost had a moment as Altan, but the moment with Altan for me was always just standing up to the Khan. Really not being flippant with him, not being disrespectful to him, but I was the one person he couldn't order. Because all the rest of them were very deferential, but I was the one he couldn't order. He could ask, but he couldn't order. I liked that. It gave a nice steel to the role, and I enjoyed it very much. Unfortunately, he became poisoned and lost his ability to change shape to human, and when he was seen in his full natural dragon form, the army were terrorized and didn't want him around, and I ended up having to fly off, and I got a third character who again was a tribesman, and that was fine, and I enjoyed that. And I so rarely get to enjoy GMing, playing, but games like that I really, really enjoy doing. So yeah, that's I've had a lot of fun as a player, but that was my big one that I enjoyed, and I to this day, whilst I may happily sort of talk about my abilities as a GM, Scott, who ran that campaign, is to me the best GM I've ever been under, by quite some distance. And that's not to say others aren't good, but he was, I've always seen him as the best and someone to try and add up to. The only other one that I really enjoy, because it was just so, both of them were just so silly. We played a game of Toon where I was playing a dog. No, in fact, I wasn't. I was playing a cat. and my friend Murray was playing a dog, and we were knights in medieval kind of England, and we were off to fight a dragon. And I think, I can't remember who Scott was. And Murray and I just took every opportunity to take the hell out of each other. The game started with us and us riding along, nice gentle ride, and I said, "Castle's up cliff." He says, "Yeah." "It's at the seaside." "Yeah." "We're at the top of a cliff." "Yeah." Looking around, "Can I find a twig or a stick or something?" I thought, "Yeah, there's one there." So I picked up the stick and I got a pen or something just to symbolise it, and I went in front of Murray and went, "Hit boy, hit boy, hit boy." And Murray immediately grabbed what was up and went, and I went, "Go, go, fetch!" and threw the, the branch, the stick off the cliff. And Murray, completely in full dog mode, went off the cliff, going for it. And it started from there, and it was just a piss take, and we just had great fun. Murray himself decided to run what he was intending to be a dungeon crawl using the Fighting Fantasy rules. He just went for it. And I ended up going for a Dark Elf Assassin. I was very young, and Dark Elf Assassin just seemed to be the thing to be. And I ended up, none of the players actually ended up in the dungeon. We arrived at the small town. It was meant to be the old small town. We get a job there, we do the dungeon. What ended up happening was two of the characters started a bar fight and spent the rest of the game having a bar fight. Me, I went to the mayor's house, killed the mayor, had myself take over as mayor, went to the town coffers, took out a large personal loan into a cart and drove off. Hellishly rich. Yes, it was a dumb game. It was a one-night game, and Murray sort of shook his head and went, "You know what, this was meant to be a dungeon crawl." And it was, I guess it was the one time as a player I realised that, you really can, lead a mule to water, but you can't make them drink it. And it's the same with players. You can tell them a dungeon that way, and they can just say, "No, we're going to go into the wilderness more." And they were really fun games for entirely different reasons. The Fighting Fantasy thing that we did with Murray was just so freeing, and Toon is just hilarious. I don't care what anyone says, Toon is just a barrel of laughs. So those are my best experiences as a player. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about my worst experiences as a player.